Here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
What's up, Supernatural superfans? I'm Chrissy Lenz.
And I'm Nate McWhorter.
And we're the host of
Gank That Drink,
a supernatural drinking game podcast.
It's the podcast where we make up drinking game rules for our favorite episode of our favorite show, Supernatural.
We recap the episode for you and let you know how all the rules played out.
Then we let you know the drinking game rules for the next episode, so you can play along.
Plus, members get every episode early and ad-free.
With some extra bonus content chit-chat at the end of each episode as a member exclusive.
So download Gank That Drink, a supernatural drinking game podcast wherever the finest podcasts are available.
And or become a member at truestory.fm/gankthatdrink.
And when you're out there in the world saving people and hunting things,
you know, the family business.
Keep the Gank That Drink motto in mind. Be excellent to each other and party on,
dudes.
Ever wonder where the devil got his horns?
How about those cloven hooves?
Or that pitchfork?
Wasn't he an angel?
No, he was a snake.
No, he's the great red dragon.
No, he's the beast.
He's the prince of this world.
Prince of darkness.
Well, he's the prince of darkness.
Good morning, star lovelies. One of my names is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I sometimes go by Keenan Diaz.
And we're the hosts of the brand new podcast, The Devil's Details. What comes to mind when I say Lucifer?
How about Satan?
What about just the devil? How did the big bad of the Western world end up with so many faces? Join us as we dig up, decipher, and deconstruct the devil's many forms throughout history.
Take a guided tour with Dante through the 9 circles of hell.
Or revisit Satan's angsty bad boy years in Paradise Lost.
Learn the ins and outs of a Faustian contract.
Easier than a 1099, but with a hell of a lot more fine print.
Slither on over to The Devil's Details on True Story FM and join us in the diabolic discussion.
Love and hisses. Mwah! Didn't Al Pacino play him in a movie?
Are you sure that wasn't Robert De
I
Niro?
could have sworn it was Tim Curry.
That was Elizabeth
Didn't he go down to Georgia at some point?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this rebroadcast episode of the Star Wars Generations podcast. I've been talking a lot on TikTok, someone in here and other places, about how we can get past all the toxic, hating stuff that we have in the Star Wars community right now. And I think one of the best positive things we can focus on is lists. What do we love in Star Wars as much as making lists? Myself and Paul Hoppy, on an episode a couple years ago, put together a bunch of our top 3 lists. We talked about different things that we love, and it just led to a whole bunch of different great conversations. And so while we're on this hiatus, I'm going to share this episode with you all now. Hope you enjoy it. As always, you can become a member with all the information in the show notes. Only $5 a month, $55 a year. Also, even though these are rebroadcast episodes, we would love to hear your feedback. We'll do a feedback episode about all this kind of stuff as we get back into regular episodes in October. So please enjoy, and we have spoken. Welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Universe podcasts. We love lists in podcast land. And so today myself and Paul Hoppy will be asking each other questions of what are your top 3 or bottom 3 or whatever it is about Star Wars. Now, in the past, we've done this where we both gave each other lists and we knew what the questions were going to be and we had time to write them out. This time, it's going to be off the cuff. I don't know what Paul's going to ask me. Paul doesn't know what I'm going to ask them. So we're just going to play it by ear and see how it goes. And I promise you, this was a well thought out, well planned episode that had nothing to do with the fact that Sarah had to cancel at the last minute, and so we couldn't do the Rebels episode we were planning. Nope, this was our plan all along. All that and more after a commercial break we have no control over. Welcome back. I'm Matthew, your host. I'm joined as fairly usually by the podcast guest du jour, Mr. Paul Hoppy. Paul, how are we doing today?
We are doing pretty well. We're indoors where it is 70-something degrees, whereas outdoors it is 110-something degrees.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I would invite you to the great frozen north, but that would involve you dealing with people, so probably not.
Yeah.
But
traveling distance and seeing folks and
once we get teleporters set up, we'll make that happen.
The Jedi needs not these things.
So let's dive into this. And let me just kind of ask you as a start, and it may be that we're about to tear apart the whole premise of the episode, but what is your general feeling on like coming up with lists of like, top 5 this or top 3 this or top 14 things about the Clone Wars you never knew, number 7 is sure to make you mad.
Yeah, so, the last thing, obvious clickbait titles are, obvious clickbait and, unpleasant. I think, my biggest pet peeve is such and such that you don't know. I'm like, just stop. Yeah. Just stop. In terms of lists, I enjoy lists. I think lists are fun. I think if you phrase a list, 10 of the greatest, cool, If you title your list The 10 Greatest, no, you're wrong. Because that's not a thing, it's like, whether it's subjective or something that's like you're using some theoretically objective measure, it's just like, I think being like, these are 3 of my favorite blank, right? As opposed to these are my 3 favorite. It's like, you don't have to rank everything. It's like, just give me a list of things that you really enjoy, really don't enjoy, think are really good in this way. Cool. Just like, you don't have to be so superlative of it.
And that's kind of like why I like this idea of doing it, because I think you're right that some preparation can help. And I think we both did this, but I certainly prepared my top 3 for each of the questions I'm going to ask you. But I also think that, like, if I sit and take hours and hours to figure out my top 10 favorite of something, I'm still probably going to be like, I'm just at some point going to stop. I'm never going to actually know my true top 10 because it's going to change so much moment to moment. But this way, it's like, okay, what's the first 3 that really strongly come to mind for you, or something like that, which is a little less subjective, more just like, because more than anything, it's just a fun way to talk about these things. So with that, let me ask you my first question. And this is kind of like, it's going back to one of our favorite themes, certainly my favorite. I think one that you've expressed a lot of interest in as well in both the podcasts we do together. Who are your top, here's the way to ask it. Who is your second, third, and fourth favorite villains? Because I know the number 1 is Darth Vader. And you don't have to tell me 2, 3, 4, but who are your top 3 villains not named Darth Vader in Star Wars?
Yeah, it's tough because, like, I think about Star Wars, and I think it has, like, arguably the greatest villain of all time. Certainly one of them. Certainly, one of the most iconic, with, I think, the most iconic voice of any character.
I mean, I wouldn't put Hux quite that high, but yeah, he's close.
Yeah. Who?
Exactly.
I know who you mean. But I think, unless you said Hutt. It's weird. I can't think of, like, a clear number 2. I could think of ones that I like. I enjoy Moff Gideon, right? Yeah. From The Mandalorian. I think most of that is just Giancarlo Esposito. Yeah. Because he's just so good. And I think a lot of that's the performance more than like the character's motivations. I'm like, on the character's motivations. Yeah. Okay, I have a clear number 2. It's Thrawn, right? Yeah. Like, in terms of villains in Star Wars who are clearly villains, I think he, after Vader, is the one who kind of has the best blend of, comprehensible motivation and complexity and, like, presence. To me, a great villain, for me to really love a villain, they usually need some level of presence where they can just, especially on-screen villains, right? Yeah. Like, where when they're on screen, there is this like weight. They like, they fill up the room. So, and Thrawn, I really only know from the Rebels TV show. I know there's all the novels and everything, but I haven't read those. But I do see what people see in Thrawn, Right.
Yeah, like, I think it's really interesting that you name him, because Thrawn is also on my list. But I think a lot of fans would say, I somewhat disagree with this, but a lot of fans would say that, like, of the various different versions we got, like, on-screen Thrawn is great, but he's even better in the books. So, like, I think it's awesome that just from the on-screen, you still put him that high, because I do as well.
Yeah, like, it comes through, Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking back, and the earlier, if we think through, like, so, like, the Emperor is, like, not my favorite villain, you know? The Emperor, to me, just is there as a plot device in a way that makes is, like, so just binarily evil, right? Yeah. that
the most mustache twirly of mustache twirlers.
Right. And that he lets everybody else be oriented around him in some way, right? And lets the rest of the story just function really well. So I think he functions really well as a villain, but isn't like particularly interesting or compelling.
And that's one of the funny things, because I was thinking I would never put the Emperor on this list. But going by the books, and to some extent the Clone Wars TV show, but mostly just going by the books, I would probably put Sheev Palpatine on this list, and certainly Senator Palpatine, and Darth Sidious. The way his character has been fleshed out in the books makes him so much more interesting, because you get backstory, you get all the things that they would never give him in the 70s and 80s. You get backstory, you get motivation, you get all the little ways that his plans were working or were not working. But yeah, I thought about putting him on the list, but was but still, the main way we know him is the Emperor, and the Emperor is just... He's good in the first 3 movies, as, like you said, the thing everyone orients himself, and then he comes back and gets punked, and that's just... I hated the whole resurrection thing, so... Oh,
yeah, I didn't mind it, but it didn't really do a lot for me, you know? I certainly wouldn't put Kylo Ren on my list of, top villains, you know? We talked about Dooku, and I feel like Dooku, the understanding I have of Dooku from what you and Jonah right, were telling me, I think is a very interesting character in terms of the character that I saw on screen. I wouldn't put him there. I would say, actually, Maul, I think, is one of the villains with the most, most interesting character lines. Because you can't really call it an arc, you know?
it's a zigzag. It's very much
It's Maul is kind of... It's sort of the more you change, the more you stay the same, you know?
Right.
And so, and then also he's just got some great duels, you know? How much does that factor into, one of my questions might, come into this, but how you rank a villain is the moments they're involved in and that they cause, right?
Definitely.
And then, so what have I got? I've got Thrawn, I've got Maul, and
Moff Gideon, unless you want to come up with something better.
Yeah, no, I think I wouldn't use Gideon. I think that performance is one of my favorite, is a top tier performance, but I might even go with Agent Kallus. In Rebels, I think Rebels does really well with having villains, antagonists who do feel compelling, and I wouldn't put Hondo on this list because I don't think Hondo's a straight up villain, you know.
To me, he's a lovable scamp. He's an antagonist at times, but he's very much not a villain.
Yeah, and so Kallus, I feel a little conflicted, but I'll throw him on there. I think is.
I would say to people who are listening along with us for our coverage of Rebels and have not watched ahead of this podcast, major spoiler warnings. So maybe skip ahead 60 seconds. But yeah, I came very close to putting Kallus on the list. But what I love about him is he has such a good redemption arc. And so I was wondering.
I wasn't going to mention that. I was kind of just implying it. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. All right, end spoiler section. Yeah, no, I think it's a good list. And one thing I think is interesting, and this is true about my list as well, is that my list, neither one of our lists really we obviously we're taking Vader from the original 3 movies, and Grand Moff Tarkin was a very close second for me in those 3 movies. Okay. But other than that, I think one of the things about both the prequels and the sequels is they don't really have any truly great villain characters. Kylo Ren, somewhat, yes, but again, he's also more of a antagonist who's played as a villain, but from the very beginning that clearly he's going to have some kind of redemption or something is going to happen.
You certainly suspect it might be true. Nobody knew.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody knew because it wasn't written, because there was no plan for that quote unquote trilogy. But it definitely felt that way. As much as that's very similar to Vader's arc, right? Except you've seen it before, so you see it coming. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I had him as my top 3. Thrawn was one of them, definitely. The second, and this might be recency bias because I just watched Rogue One again 2 nights ago, Director Krennic. And in part it's because I do think he's very menacing in a way. But what I love about him is he's not a Vader or a Tarkin. He's a middle management bureaucrat.
Right.
Like, so much of his story, like, I love the kind of big picture stuff. And I think what that movie and Bad Batch also really explores this, but is like, when you have an empire, and an empire where if you mess up, you're gonna get killed, like, employee loyalty to each other is zero. And like bureaucratic infighting is going to be all over the place. And that's exactly what that movie's about, you know, in terms of like the battle between Tarkin and Krennic. And so it's not even as much his character as just what he represents and what he shows, but the idea of this guy who, like, I don't know if he believes in the Empire. I don't know if he cares about the Emperor, but he wants to have his control of, you know, he built this thing and he wants to get credit for this thing. And he gets mad when Tarkin, and he'll do what he needs to get credit for that thing. And yeah, I just thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think, you know, in order to have an evil emperor, and in order to have an evil empire, you need a lot more than an evil emperor. Right? You need a lot of people to go along with it, whether they're true believers or whether they're just they're out for themselves, right?
Yeah.
But they need to be willing to say, yeah, okay, I'll do this horrible, unspeakable thing in order to, like, you know, have a nicer speeder or whatever.
And to be clear, like, he's an awful human being. He watches the destruction of Jeddah and says that's so beautiful. You know, but yeah, it's he's not a good guy. I think most of the time we get villains who are true believers, and so it's just nice to see the bureaucrat. And then my last villain is Asajj Ventress.
Okay.
Not even while she's with Dooku, but just her arc afterwards, where she often still is a villain. And particularly the books make this clear. She sometimes teams up with our people, she sometimes doesn't, and sometimes she's just doing her own thing. Like, and they give her this room to be in this middle space where she wants to kill Dooku, she wants to do other things that, like, we would say are overall good, but she doesn't want to help the Jedi. She doesn't want to become a Jedi, definitely. She doesn't want to give up her dark side powers. She still respects parts of the dark side. In the book, she comes to more of a redemption, but the way they keep her in this kind of middle ground of antagonist who is dark side, who is not Sith, and who's very morally gray is just one of my favorite kind of characters.
Yeah, she's almost in that category of, I wouldn't necessarily classify her as a villain, even though she clearly is a dark side force user who begins as a clear antagonist.
Yeah.
I feel like she becomes interesting once she's no longer Dooku's apprentice, you know? Up until then, it's like, you know, she looks cool. She's got two red lightsabers. Yeah, that's fun, you know?
Yeah.
But, like, once he betrays her, then I think she has such a character arc that feels to me, you know, the Force side of scum and villainy almost, you know? Just the kind of, like, outcasts, like, you know, willing to do not really great things, but, like, not for, like, evil, you know? Just, like, you know, she's just doing, what?
I don't mean this in a gender way, but, like, I like non-binary characters. I like characters who look at the binary of Jedi, Sith, good, evil, and like, let's play with that a little bit. So what's your first question?
So I've got a list of, like, 8 potential questions.
Okay.
One of them was favorite villains, so I'll delete that. I figured I would come up with at least enough that if all of yours were on my list, then I'd still have enough extras.
Quick editorial comment. I said to Paul that we should probably come up with 5 questions because I want to make sure we had enough to fill the time. Paul suggested perhaps we only do 3. We agreed on 3, so we have 6 total. We've only done 1 of 6, and we're 20 minutes in. So, yeah, we'll get to as many as we can.
I don't think we're actually 20 minutes in because we, like, blabbed a little before we actually started the pod.
That's
but
true.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah. No, I'm not planning to go through all these. I'm looking at them thinking, okay, well, here's one that it plays with, like, villains a little bit, and it will reference many of the same characters. What are 3 of your favorite duels?
I was thinking this was going to be 3 of your favorite lightsaber battles or something like that.
Yeah.
Duels. Maul's in a lot of them.
Okay.
And for me, it's always this hard moment of, I enjoy the fight. I enjoy the, like, you know, sort of visual effect of the fights, But as I said before, fight scenes aren't the primary thing that motivates me. So that matters to me. But what generally matters much more to me is the emotional stakes I feel in this. And here I think I'll kind of square that circle. I do think that the way the fighting is done, if it's done well, should probably reflect that, And so, honestly, the first one that comes to mind, even though we just did a podcast episode about how it's not really a duel, it lasts 3 seconds, is Obi-Wan and Maul. Because it just is, to me, and there's a great TikTok that I'll post along with this episode where they really break down how Kenobi goes through these different stances and the mind game the two of them play, and that most of the fight happens before they start fighting. Because the fight is 4 slashes and then we're done. But there's just so much emotional weight to that fight. There's so much history of these two characters, and it feels like such this perfect coda that I remembered it as such this epic fight that I was shocked when I saw that it was only 5 seconds long. Because in my head it had so much power, and I still think it does.
Yeah, that's definitely on my list too. So I'll just respond to that briefly.
Yeah.
I think it's very much a duel in the the way that a gun duel can be a duel.
Yeah.
One person shoots, the other person shoots, it's over. Or maybe just the first person shoots, the other person's dead. That's basically what happens here, right? Maul shoots, Kenobi parries, Kenobi kills Maul. Boom, done,
Yeah.
And but the duel part of it is the part that happens beforehand, right? It's the drama, it's the setup, and I feel like there's so much of that. And we talked about it a bunch on the last pod. Go listen to that pod if you haven't. If you had, all those thoughts are still fresh.
So mind. I don't want all three to be Maul, so I'll say tied for second and third because they're just so. Both so well. No, I'm gonna give you 4 answers.
Pick one. But you can mention them both.
I'll pick. Here's the thing: the two. Oh God, there's just so many good fights. Duel of the Fates at the end of Phantom Menace. I think part why it stands out is that I do think the rest of Phantom Menace was very much not a movie for me, and that's fine. I've really enjoyed listening to why people take such great meaning and power from it. I just didn't love it. That it stands out so much more, but also especially as I've learned so much more about Qui-Gon and this whole idea of really just giving thought to Obi-Wan was just the wrong person to train Anakin. And he admitted that all the way back in Empire Strikes Back. But the idea that if Qui-Gon had been able to raise Anakin, the whole galaxy would have worked out so differently. And that to an extent, that is the duel of the fates. And then on some level, when Maul kills Qui-Gon, the fight's over. There's still an interesting fight still, and Obi-Wan gets to kill Maul. Well, he thinks he kills Maul, but
bisect him.
Bisecting, which doesn't mean killing, oddly enough. But yeah, I think that fight to me is just really impactful. And I'll say that here's my I hate previews. As much as I love that battle, if the first time I saw a dual-sided lightsaber was in a theater, I think my love for Phantom Menace would be so much higher. Just that one thing. Because there is so much beauty in and just amazingness. And oh my God, what the hell are we going to do when Maul reveals that second blade? And just to have not seen that before and to watch these two people trying to figure out how to fight. Ray Park was just amazing. He was the stunt coordinator, the sword fight teacher. And he was supposed to teach Maul. And they're why doesn't he just be Maul?
Right.
So yeah, the visual beauty of it, the music of it, and just the meaning of it. I think that's my number 2.
Nice. Yeah, that's one that was close for me. But it isn't in, it's somewhere in the top 10 for me.
Yeah.
I feel you on the the fate aspect of it, right? And that's something that I had never really given that much thought before, but I think is a really good point. Personally, the music is amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
It carries a lot of things in, throughout Star Wars, the music. And so there it really elevates that to another level. That was also the first really acrobatic lightsaber battle, I think, that you had, right? Through the original 3 movies, they kind of gradually ramped up from really not super impressive to like, okay, he did a sidekick. Okay, yeah, that's pretty good form. All right, where those battles were much more about the emotion, I think. Whereas here there was emotion, right? But there was also this like the choreography was another level.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what I have about
I think it's really true. And, this is when, like, we go from lightsaber equals claymore to lightsaber equals rapier. And that's just a lot more fun of a fight to watch.
Yeah, or equals bow staff, like, I did not see till the theater, and it was quite... I had sat through the rest of the movie, which I was like, and I was like, all right, this is why I'm in this theater.
Yeah.
Like, this is a moment,
That's impressive that you were avoiding previews all the way back then that well. Because, I definitely saw it on like 8. I saw it on 8 different TV ads.
Yeah, I didn't watch TV.
Yeah.
So that helped.
That's smart. Even though I know it does not look great, honorable mention to me for the Obi-Wan versus Vader fight in the first movie in A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Honorable mention to me for Ahsoka versus Maul at the end of Clone Wars. I think it probably shouldn't be in my top 3 because, again, mostly I've just talked about it so much. I want to talk about something else. Honorable mention for the when Ahsoka and Obi-Wan fight together against Darkseid people, because it's just like they're kind of like bantering and they're both making fun of how like they can't imagine they're doing this, and like they're kind of
in Clone Wars.
Yeah, in Clone Wars, yeah. But the one I'm going to come with for my top 3, and again here this is emotion over acrobaticness, but is Return of the Jedi, Vader and Luke, because there's just the real duel there is Vader trying to pull Luke to the dark side and Luke trying to pull Vader to the light side. And the lightsabers are just a prop in that larger duel. And to me, that whole duel and that whole scene is the heart and soul of everything I love about Star Wars, is the idea that, like, yes, like Vader can needle Luke and can get under his skin, and Luke can lose it for a minute when Leia is threatened, but can still pull back enough to find the compassion in Vader and to pull him back to the other side. And it's also just like, it's fun to watch a fight where one person's trying not to fight, that it just creates a different kind of dynamic. And I think they shot it really well.
Yeah, that's my number 1 that I'm not going to count as number 1 because I want to talk about other ones besides that and Empire Strikes Back, which are my number 1 and 2. Because to me, Star Wars ultimately comes down to the Luke Vader thing. Anakin, the 3 of them, and sort of how they interact, to me is like the heart of the original Star Wars, which is the Star Wars I lived with until The Phantom Menace, basically, right? So,
I will just quick interject. I was going to ask you what are your top 3 Star Wars movies, and then realized it would just be the original trilogy. I'm 90% sure. So,
Rogue One, I think, is ahead of Star Wars: A New Hope.
That's fair.
But like those 2 are close, and I was gonna, if that was a question, I was gonna go with the trilogy as one unit.
That's
and
fair.
Then so yeah. But no, that's a good guess. It's pretty close. It's it's like that's 1, 2, and like tied for 3rd, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah. The lighting and the music, I think that's not the first time you have vocals, right? Because when the Emperor shows up, you have some human voices in the music, right? But that's the first time you do in a fight scene, which then I think they did again in Duel of the Fates, right? But like the lighting, the music, like the production, the sound, it all comes together so well to really underscore the emotions of the fight, right? Which are the key to the fight. And it's cut up across, so like it's broken up rhythmically by the other 2 battles that are going on. Right. And it's really interwoven with those so well. And the fact that Luke doesn't want to really fight, right? That's not really what he's there to do. It does change the dynamic. And, that he does get so emotional that he screams something that's either no, never, or not her. And you can't really tell. And I guess it's subtitled. But like, that is just like, to me, that I think that's my favorite Star Wars moment. Because that's like, or second, but that whole time in that movie, and then Empire Strikes Back to me also is this, that's their first duel and they do want to fight, but like Vader doesn't really want to fight then,
You're
Vader
right.
wants to
That's a great
capture
parallel.
him.
I hadn't thought of that.
Right?
Yeah.
He's not trying to kill Luke. He's trying to bring him to the dark side. And in the second one, Luke's trying to bring him back from the dark side, you know? And I like that Luke loses that first one. And then he wins the second one in like the same way, you know, cutting off the lightsaber hand. And I think those two duels just really, also the lighting and just the way they're shot is so perfect in those two movies. And to me, it's like, without those, I would just like Star Wars, you know?
Yeah. I think it's
like
true.
that's what elevates those movies to like movies that I really love. But those two don't count because they're like the Vader, you know, of the villain's question.
Let me just say two quick things about them and then get you to your actual answers.
Yeah, go ahead.
One is, I think also one thing you said about how that lightsaber battle is intercut with the two other battles that are happening. One on the surface of Endor, one the space battle. And all three battles are interesting. And all three and the rhythm of the battles matches each other.
Yeah.
To me, the most damning thing about like the way for if Phantom Menace had done that,
right,
I think I would have had a much better opinion of the movie again. It's the fact that it's cutting between this utterly ridiculous starship battle where a kid is just floating around and no one knows how to shoot against him, and this ridiculous battle of Gungans versus droids that are both so boring and so badly cut that it's just so different.
Yeah. And a fourth thing too, it's got like Amidala and them like all sneaking around and stuff. It's like cutting back and forth between four things. Because each movie, like A New Hope was like one thing, and then Empire was two things, and Jedi was three things, and then A Phantom Menace was four things. And then I think finally they got to Attack of the Clones. They're like, all right, let's not cut between five things.
Yeah, that's much better. The other thing I was going to say too, also about that Jedi fight scene is, like, again, this is the stuff that I notice more than like the martial arts stuff. There's particular shots that are just that tell so much. And to me, the defining one, there's a couple like this, but the defining one is when Luke finally like takes the bait and attacks, and he swings at the Emperor, it looks like, and Vader blocks him. And it's just this perfectly, I can exactly visualize in my head of their two lightsabers crossed with the Emperor laughing in the background. And it's like, that moment tells you everything about the Emperor's motivation for that entire movie. Like, he wants these two to fight. Because I honestly believe in that moment, he doesn't care who wins. Like, he cares.
Right. Yeah,
but in terms of like, he doesn't know which of these two is best. And
he wants whoever's stronger. And that's the one who's going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, again, goes to the bureaucrat thing. Like, get your bureaucrats to fight against each other, and the best will arise.
Right.
These two aren't bureaucrats, but you know what I mean?
will say one thing about that scene. That shot is so great, except I feel like Luke is swinging from the wrong side.
That may well be true.
It feels like he's swinging away from the Emperor, and I'm like, I don't understand. If he was swinging at the Emperor, he should have been coming this way, but he's coming the other way. It that always has bothered me because I'm like, this is so good, but it's also like I think it's wrong. I think it's shot wrong.
It's funny. I just a couple hours ago recorded some episodes with the Marvel Movie Minute folks, a great podcast. I love it. And I was teasing. I went pretty deep into like having fun with those guys. And I was teasing them about how they really look for the minutia in movies. It's stuff that I used to not notice, but now I do. And so, like, don't point that out to me. I don't want to think about
they're my people.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. All right, so what are your actual top three?
Okay, my top three that aren't disqualified from being too awesome and seminal and just like, you know, at the root of like, you know, my initial love for Star Wars are... so you already mentioned Maul vs. Kenobi, which is just, we've said everything that needs to be said about that. It's amazing. It's not about that's it, period. Maul vs. Ahsoka, I'm going to take that one because I know that was choreographed and shot with two actual people. It was Ray Park and I think it's Lauren Mary Kim. I might be messing up her name, but I think that's her name. Who's a outstanding stunt woman who... She was doing Ahsoka, right?
Right.
And then the funny thing is, she is the stunt double for the governor, I think she's called, in The Mandalorian, in the episode The Jedi, who when she's fighting against Ahsoka, which I thought was kind of funny.
Hilarious. That's awesome.
I'm pretty sure this is true. I'm pretty sure. So anyway, I thought that that fight is so interesting because it's like this really great, well done duel, and like like it doesn't really matter. Yeah. Because what's going on is at the same time is the whole, Anakin's fall thing, right? And so it's like, it matters, but it also feels like, getting to see this epic duel between these two characters who know, like, they know they're the side characters, which you don't always get, but they know that like the fate of the galaxy is at stake and they're just here out on a scaffolding, like, dueling.
I have to say in particular, I'm trying not to have too many tangents because we're going so long, but I'm going to have all the tangents. We know us.
Yeah, bring it.
I love that, particularly as you mentioned that Ray Park is a part of that, because Ray Park is an amazing martial artist and fight coordinator and all that kind of stuff. I don't think there's anything about his like acting, especially his line delivery in A Phantom Menace, that's really that noteworthy. And I think because of that, and in part because the character gets much better writing, at this point, when most people think of the actor who plays Darth Maul, they could think of Sam Witwer, who's the voice actor who I think plays him phenomenally in the Clone Wars. And on some level, it's like a little sad that, like, wait, no, Ray Park originated this character, and now Sam Witwer has just taken it so much further. So to have Ray Park be back and involved was such a critical moment for this character. I just love that. To me, like, I think they got him in part because he's very good, but it also to me is just a really nice way of honoring like these two people who together really gave life to this character so well.
Yeah, exactly. The circle is now complete and all that.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's great because like what Ray Park brought to the character was the physicality, right? Yeah. And so having that in having him bring that to that episode, which is that 4-arc episode of Clone Wars is just, I don't know, it's tied for like top in my Star Wars things basically.
Got it. Oh, so is that your 3?
No, I just listed 1.
Okay.
Oh, 2. I listed 2. Oh yeah. So Maul versus Ahsoka, Maul versus Kenobi, right? Mm-hmm. And then I already had 2 Vader versus. So like clearly my villains are fairly weighted towards with their duels. And I specifically said duels, not lightsaber battles, because my third one, it involves a lightsaber, is Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, versus Moff Gideon. With the spear, the Beskar spear versus the Darksaber, which it like that kick thing, the thing he does with the, like, he kicks the spear and it comes up, and I just think it's really well done in an episode that also is tied for like my favorite Star Wars things ever. And yeah, and I mean, Darksaber looks awesome. And I think it's the first time we really see it, right, in action, in live action, in terms of actually in a fight, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that one just, that's like both for like where it sits within that whole episode and that whole show. And then also just the choreography, it's just really, really thoughtfully, creatively done, it's like, because I feel like you see things and so often it's like, yeah, well, I've seen that move before. I've said, oh, what's that? Like for like someone to do something physical in some action thing and like really surprise me, like it takes something, and then they did it there.
I'm just gonna add one more honorable mention just because, and then we really get to your your next question. But because you said duel, like I still was thinking this is lightsaber battle, but because you said duel. The fact that Cad Bane has actual literal duels, like both in the Book of Boba Fett and in the Clone Wars TV show. And like, if you told me that someone wrote a black hat cowboy and put him in Star Wars, I would think you're nuts. But they do it so well with Cad Bane. So anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, they have that a lot in Mandalorian as well, right? And I think some people are like, oh, but they just did this. It's like, yeah, but it's still good. It's, as long as you have the right characters and you shoot it right, it can, it can be good.
Definitely. All right. So what's your next question?
Okay. My next question, this is kind of overlapping, I guess. I'm going to go with, what are 3 of your favorite live action moments? Because we did our favorite animated moments, right? I think that was the thing we did. So, like, in the live action, everything. Like, what are 3... And I didn't actually come up with these for myself, so go ahead.
So, I'm going to be controversial here to start out. I think my favorite moment in all of Star Wars is projection Luke against Kylo Ren. It is just such an incredible moment of it. To me, I think it's visually gorgeous. Like the whole idea of like the sand and like the fact that like you have to really pay attention enough to notice that like Luke isn't causing that he isn't moving the sand the way everybody else is. The dialogue in it is both like hilarious. Like I don't think I've ever laughed quite as much as when Luke brushes the dust off of his shoulder after like all the things get fired at him, and just the whole like everything you just said is wrong. Yeah, so that's gonna be my number one.
So I'm actually going to respond to that.
Go for it.
Out of all the things that I absolutely loathe about The Last Jedi, that's not one of them.
Okay.
Like that is definitely taken on its own. I think is a great scene. I've certainly laughed harder, but but yeah, it's the sort of moment when like the dust is clearing and then just like still standing there is like, yeah, no, what is that all you got? Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
I think that's one. Number two, I've talked about this to death, so I won't say too much of it, but it's just, if I cannot save Anakin, I will avenge him. Vengeance is not the Jedi way. I am no Jedi. I mean, I get goosebumps just saying those lines again. It's from the Twilight of the Apprentice, the episodes from Rebels. When Ahsoka is fighting with Anakin / Vader.
The famous live action show.
Oh, live action. You said live action. Okay, sorry.
I thought you were referencing Kenobi now, actually.
No, so I've got a similar question, but in a different way. But
yeah.
Well, live action. Okay, live action. But Hondo has never been in a live action.
You can't use Hondo. We already did animation, right? Okay, that was great. Go listen to that episode. We had a lot of fun.
The moment when we talked about that, like I think if we hadn't just done duels, I think the Luke Vader fight scene would have been one of them. Mm-hmm. I think when this is silly, but it has been attacked, so I have to defend it. Yub-nub.
Oh, yeah, word. Yeah, I'm with you.
And it's not just because it's a silly song, and I like silly songs, and I hate the idea of Lucas cutting it, but like, one of the fundamental ideas of those movies, at least the original trilogy, was supposed to be like the way that machinery is replacing man, and that man can fight back against machinery. Or the sentient life can fight back about machinery. And like, some people think the Ewoks are silly. I love the idea of these indigenous folks who don't have any technology. Like, I mean, they have their technology and using that to defeat this incredible technological menace. And so the way that song was done, and like the whole, like I can visualize it entirely in my head. The way that they dance with each other, and one of them, I think it's Wicket dance. No, it's the medicine man type person who dances with Han, and like the drum set of Imperial helmets, which I admit as an 8-year-old, I was like, are their heads still in there? That's so badass. Adult me thinks that's probably not the case.
But maybe, I mean, the Ewoks eat people.
That's true. That's true.
Right? Like, people are like, oh, they're so cute and fluffy. It's so cheesy. Like, they eat people.
They were going to eat people. That's very true.
They're hardcore.
So I think that would be the second moment. Third would be... It's funny. I mean, all of Rogue One is so good. I
have one moment.
I know what it is. It's also going to be from Last Jedi. It's also going to be very controversial. The Hondo maneuver. I just think the where she takes her ship to light speed to crash into the Imperial Star Destroyer or the new First Order Star Destroyer to stop that from happening. It's just, I don't care about the physics. I don't care about like why didn't they use it before. You can headcanon answers to all those questions. Just the pure filmmaking of it, of having all the sound just stop, and just that incredible visual moment. As well as like this person who's had everything about her leadership has been questioned up to this point. And it's just such her willing to sacrifice herself like this to like, she knows General Organa, Leia would want to sacrifice herself, but she won't. And so she does it instead. It's to me just one of like, in terms of like just single moment, one of the most perfect in Star Wars.
No comment.
That's fair.
I'll just leave that. Yeah, so those are your 3. 2 from Last Jedi. Yeah. And one from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's, I mean, as I'm thinking about it more, there's definitely some other like Han knocking Vader's ship out of like Han's,
Oh yeah, coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, Han's moment in New Hope is definitely up there. And actually, I'll throw one more in because it's double-edged because it's such a perfect moment of romance that the whole rest of the series is constantly trying to get back to and failing. But I love you, I know. It's just such a defining, beautiful moment.
Yeah, I had one category that was going to be favorite lines.
Yeah,
and I don't know whether that would be there, but it certainly could be. Yeah, for me, coming up with 3 moments is like hard. Like I'll also say like the entire end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
like I'm just not gonna pick anything from that because I could easily just have my top 3 be like, I mean, there was the lightsaber battle, and then even after that, there's like Luke being like, "Because I'm a father, I'm a father like my Jedi before me." That is not the line. That is definitely not the line. And then Vader turning to the Emperor to me is like that's the pivotal moment. The fate of the galaxy right there. But like,
and
I won't
he
pick
says
that one.
nothing when he does it.
He says nothing. Yeah, I have another thing that might come up again, and then the whole Yub Nub thing as well, and like Luke with like the lighting, the Vader armor on fire.
Oh yeah, that was really nice.
It's so like that whole thing. I'll just set that aside, and like also the parts of Empire Strikes Back that I've already mentioned, like I'll set that aside as well, and. I guess I'll have one sort of cheat, which is the last episode of Mandalorian season 2, episode 8.
I don't think it's a cheat. I think the whole thing is phenomenal.
I mean, I think the entire episode is fantastic, but like the moments that really stand out to me, aside from anything I've already mentioned, and I mean, there's all the like jetpack parkour and all that stuff, but like the, beep, beep, beep. And they're like, oh, how many life forms? None. Like that's like so chilling when it's like, oh, it's the Dark Troopers. And then like, then Luke showing up, spoilers, I guess. I often try to like not mention that, but because it's like, it was just so amazing, like watching that right when it came out and having no idea that was definitely what was going to happen, and Bo-Katan being like, the Jedi, like there's so much weight there from like, to me it brings this feeling of like really how much sort of the galaxy went through, like just Bo-Katan saying that line because of having seen her way back in Clone Wars and knowing that she knew Jedi, but then that there were these decades where she didn't, and then the Empire's fallen and now she's here, and like then her reaction there, it's and Katie Sackhoff does a great job, and Ming-Na Wen does a great job, which is none, and like that whole end there for me is just like, that's outside of like the original trilogy, which I'm just going to disqualify. I'm just going to say I'm not going to mention that. Is just it's the most of like what Star Wars can be to me.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. It's just, and to me, it's the perfect marriage because it is both. Incredibly emotional, powerful moment. Like I had a friend who actually got the Luke reveal spoiled for them. And like, I think that might be the single moment in all of Star Wars that I would be most upset if it had been spoiled for me. Like
I might go with second, but yeah.
I don't remember a time when I didn't know Vader was Luke's father, so I can't really count that. But but yeah, I think all of that is just, and it's, yeah, and it's both the emotional meaning of it, but also just the cinematography of it, the lighting, the slow reveal, and the fact that you only really know it's Luke because of his glove, which is this weird thing of like his connection to his father. It was just like, there was so much thought and love put into every shot of that scene.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like just like the whole episode, like so much of that episode is just so well executed, and could only be executed that way by people who have so much investment in the whole,
definitely.
oeuvre or whatever, like the whole world.
I'm gonna throw one other quick cheat that it made me think of, which is because again, this is like a 2-second moment, but the end of the first episode of Mandalorian, when you don't really know who this character, or I think it's maybe the end of the second episode. No, it's the end of the first episode.
No, end of the first,
You don't really know who this character is. The robot wants to kill the baby.
Yeah.
Mando hasn't really said much about it. and all you hear, you see him draw his gun, you hear the gun go off, and for a half second you don't know what happened, and then you see the robot fall. And I was just like, that's just brilliant filmmaking, like in terms of like shooting and effects. And it was just that moment sets up everything about Mando's character so well.
Absolutely, for sure. And the whole show, right? Like the arc of the show. Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I guess for a second one, I'm going to go with the moment from Rogue One that I think maybe you were going to mention. I'm not sure.
Which one?
Where Donnie Yen's character, I don't remember the character's name. They say it like 3 times. I think it starts with a C. Where he's just walking towards the button and he's just like, I'm one with the Force is with me. I'm one with the Force is with me. You know, and then he goes and presses the button and gets shot and, you know, everything, you know, it works, right? But like, I just really, I don't know, because that was a whole movie that like wasn't about the Force, you know, it was about the rebellion and outside of like any connection with any Jedi. And so they're kind of having that character there, like doing that. It just really, to me, it kind of brings it together a little bit more in a way.
I think so,
you know, and it's like, you don't really know whether he's using the Force or not, you know, like maybe he is, maybe he's not. It doesn't really matter, you know. It's like, I mean, it's funny because it's kind of like, I guess it's like his faith in the Force and his conviction and whatever, which isn't really something that I'd say I can relate to in any, you know, kind of, you know, real world thing. But I just think it plays really, really powerfully there.
Yeah, I think that moment sets up a true understanding of how non-Jedi, like the way they mythologize the Jedi and the Force, much better than almost anything in Clone Wars does. You know, I think it really just drives that home.
And then also sets up, there's something very similar in, I believe, the penultimate episode of Clone Wars. So where Rex is saying something like that, or Ahsoka's, either Rex or Ahsoka, or they're both saying it something, you know, they're both saying something like
I remember what you're talking about. I can't place it.
Yeah. And I guess I won't pick a third one because I basically picked all of the end of Return of the Jedi. And, you know,
I did think it's funny that I suggested we do 5. You said let's do 3, so we have to make some decisions, and we've both been cheating like crazy. But that's fine. This is all arbitrary. We can do that.
Yeah, and that's what I said. I mean, I even said in the message, I was like, "Look, we're going to talk about more than what we call our top 3, right? We're going to say these are 3 of our favorite, and then here's some other, you know, ones that didn't quite make it today. Maybe on another day they would."
Yep.
Okay. I have one more, but why don't you? I mean, I have 5 more, but
you say your one more quickly, and then I'll try to restrain.
Yeah, this one is little. Okay, this one's kind of like a throwaway almost. Outside of like the racism and anything else like really problematic from like the Phantom Menace or anywhere else. Outside of that, what are to you the 3 biggest really cringe moments in any Star Wars anything?
This is a good one, and people who have been listening to me talk about Star Wars for these episodes can probably guess a couple of these. Number 1 for me is Dooku. Specifically the moment when Dooku gets off the ship and you see that he has been working with Palpatine this whole time. Because he gives Kenobi this beautiful speech where it's clear he believes that he's doing this for the right reasons. And part of the thing is, we know that he's right and Kenobi's wrong. He says, look, there's a Sith behind all these maneuvers and you don't know that. And Kenobi's like, no, we can't know that. And like, that would set up Dooku as such this utterly brilliant villain. You've heard me talk about this all the time. I'm not going to say much more about it, but yeah. So to me, that's absolutely cringeworthy.
Word.
There's so much about Rise of Skywalker that's cringeworthy to me that I feel like picking any one moment. I'm gonna put the way we were like
that whole movie.
All of Return of Jedi is good. All that movie's gonna be bad. Not all of it, as we're gonna discuss.
Right,
but like, so what are my other 2? I think you respond to that first one while I think of the other 2.
No, I just said word. Like, I agree.
Yeah.
You know, I'm with you on that one. I'll suggest one for you from the same movie.
Okay, go for it. I mean, yeah, there's so
It might
much.
involve Yoda and a
Oh.
lightsaber.
Oh, okay.
I would think that. I don't know if that's what you would. That's not necessarily what I mean by cringe moments, but because
Yeah.
you went with the Dooku one, I feel like that from things you've said.
Okay, yeah.
You know?
Yoda to me is different, because that's not like I'm
That's a
going to
different
focus on
thing.
cringe in the story. You know.
Okay, fair.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yoda.
that
I
was the
think
point,
because
yeah.
you'd sort of also said like besides like the racism and some sexism
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
To me, that's just pure ableism in that scene.
Sure.
I feel like I have to give an honorable mention to I Hate Sand, and just
Yeah, that's my number 3.
But I would say even perhaps like because that's a terrible line. But to me, the more cringeworthy moment, and here actually I'll say this one is, I can't sleep. I can't think. I forget the exact wording, but at some point it basically comes to, I am tormented by the kiss you should never have given me. I am in agony, and I just like Anakin is a boy. Like, forgive me, I'll bleep this out. Anakin is an F-boy. Like, it's just all of like the incredibly manipulative, gaslighty, like, you should be with me because I am hurting because you reject me, and so it's your fault. He's not an F-boy, he's an incel in that moment. Like, it just feels like I would say I cannot understand why people romanticize Anakin and Padme as this great romantic couple, but then people romanticize the Joker and Harley, and I think there's actually a lot of similarity there. I think there's some of the same toxic elements, and it's also shown in the Clone Wars when Anakin catches Padme with Clovis. But yeah, I think that would be my second one. Is just that whole speech of, I am so hurt by the fact that you're rejecting me that you should be with me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess all the Jedi are literally involuntarily celibate, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I have some that kind of delves into a whole thing that I kind of don't really want to get into.
Okay, that's cool.
But yeah, I mean, you could just say every line in Attack of the Clones, and it'd be like, it's just very cringy dialogue. But
it's part of why I Love You, I Know looks so much better.
Right. Yeah.
Third moment, give me your list, because give me your list. I'm having trouble coming up with a third.
My list is number 1, no. Number 2,
Wait,
no.
Oh,
and number 3, I hate sand.
Okay.
So 5 words. So I guess Vader says no multiple times now in Return of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. Not my Return of the Jedi, but that just ruins the best. Like, that's actually, I believe, my number 1 moment in all of Star Wars is Vader turning and chucking the Emperor down the chute, because that is the turning point. That is what the entire original trilogy was building towards. It's the climax, and Lucas was just like, how about I ruin it for you?
Yeah.
It's like Yub Nub getting stripped away in this just even tighter, more efficient form.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, Han shot first is probably the moment that's the most talked about in terms of stupid things Lucas added or took away.
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe it was because by the release of that movie, we were just so used to these terrible things that we didn't focus on it more. But yeah, to me, that one, Han not shooting first is a dumb moment and it hurts his character development. But yeah, I think that moment is far more important.
Right.
Yeah.
Just the weight of the moment.
Yeah. So yeah, that would be I was thinking, like, to me they just don't exist. But yeah, if I have a third cringeworthy moment, it's just all of the things from that movie, all of the things that Lucas later inserts.
Right, all the changes that aren't just like, a little bit of CGI that makes Cloud City look like it has windows. Yeah, okay, that's fine. You can do that. That's okay.
Luke reconnecting with Biggs, I think, is probably my only where I'm like, yeah, that actually adds a little bit to the movie.
Right, yeah, that's just director's cut, That's like, that's okay. You can put something back in that you cut for time, I'm always fine with that.
Yeah.
But I still don't understand why Disney doesn't have multiple versions available on D+,
Yeah.
Like, you could just do that. It's just a streaming service. You could do that.
There is apparently on the internet, I'll see if I can find where it is and post a link in the screenshots, but someone has put in the show notes, someone has put, I think on YouTube, like, the original version that was shown in theaters in the 1970s.
Really? Interesting.
So, like, This is not only like not with the Lucas editions, but like this is before the remastered. So like the TIE fighters are jerking around on the screen and like the explosions look pretty bad. And I want to see if I can find that at some point.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm curious.
So go ahead.
So then the second no is just like when Vader becomes Vader and, you know, he's in the suit for the first time and he's like, no. I'm like, you managed to take, you know, the greatest like voice actor of live action anyway, you know, and like just clowning on him. Like what you know? Yeah. And you know, in the same movie, you've got that backswing. You know, that whole scene doesn't work for me, but it's not like there's a single moment that's like super cringe. It just doesn't quite work for me, you know? Yeah. Whereas the no is just this like, you know, feces ice cream on the top of a cake of feces. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. And then the I hate sand. I mean, there's not that much to say about it. I hate sand. I don't like it, but I'm not going to like try and romance someone with it. I mean, I guess it's understandable he doesn't know how, but the idea was this was supposed to be romantic, right? I think that was the aim, and I'm like, oh goodness,
it's just so bad. And I think my third will be from that movie. It's Padme dying of sadness.
Oh no, that's
Padme is probably the single. Dooku gets more development, but in terms of like a character who I think was criminally underdeveloped and underused in live action and then gets completely rewritten, so much more added to her character in both the Clone Wars and in the books is Padme Amidala. She's much better in the Clone Wars. I think she's much more chemistry with Anakin in those TV shows. But in the E.K. Johnson books about Padme, Queen's Shadow, Queen's Peril, Queen's Hope, I think the third one is, it just gives the character so much more depth. And so the idea that like, it makes no sense because Leia apparently remembers Padme. She remembers her birth mother.
Right. Yeah.
So like, which I don't care if you use the Force, like you saw her for 3 seconds. And yeah, it's just like put aside the books, like the Padme Amidala you saw in the Clone Wars. Would that woman just give up on life because her love turned to the dark side?
Right. Yeah. No. Not that. Yeah. No.
No way. So,
it's that's very bad. That to me has this kind of like misogynistic, like undercurrent, you know, that I think exists in, you know, the prequel trilogy significantly more than in the original trilogy, which is interesting.
Yeah.
You know, because it was like 20 years later. And it's like somehow like gone backwards. Because like Princess Leia in the original one, okay, you can have plenty of complaints. I don't remember a second female character besides Beru, who like
there isn't
barely did anything, right? Besides getting fridged, like
there are 3 women characters in all of those first 3 Star Wars movies.
Yeah, like that's.
Do you know who the really third is?
Mon Mothma.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Who, you know, but that's the thing. Like, yes, there's a dearth of female characters, right? But it's like, okay, you've got Aunt Beru, who's like kind of, you know, relegated to irrelevancy. But like Princess Leia is like badass, you know, and Mon Mothma is in charge of like the rebellion, you know, like those are bold choices in 1977 and 1983, you know, so
very much. So,
so at least like, you know, that's better than Amidala in you know the third. You know, in Revenge of the Sith, anyway. I think in the second movie, she actually had a little bit more agency in a few spots that was kind of nice. But
I mean, like her dragging Anakin to go rescue Obi-Wan, like
that's a moment, you know.
If it wasn't for the fact that she's supposed to fall in love with Anakin for no reason that I can possibly understand, especially while Daddy Wan Kenobi is right there, as the internet will often point out. All right, so. Somehow I think you got to do 2 questions in a row. I thought we were we're coming to the end.
No, I did 3 questions in a row.
Oh, okay, I only asked one of them. Okay, so it's more.
Go.
I somehow kept avoiding much. So, going in a different direction. Who are the 3 best actors in Star Wars?
Oh, so to clarify, do you mean the 3 best actors, or the 3 actors who do the best acting within the Star Wars?
The 3 best acting performances within Star Wars.
Okay, so I'm going to take this as meaning live action.
Okay.
And if you want to list any voice actors, that's cool. I haven't really listened to the series in English, so I don't really
that's
share
true.
the same voice actors you do. You're like Sam Witwer. I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, I'd have to look up whose voices I've been hearing because, I've listened to Maul in Spanish and German and Cantonese, and, So I'll take it in terms of live action. Geez, I don't know. That's hard. It's really hard. I'll say, first of all, that I think Mark Hamill's performance is dramatically underrated and made, sort of played, like, in a certain way, like, it's not, I think it's underappreciated,
Yeah.
But, I think his best acting is, like, as the Joker, and so I don't think that I'd necessarily put him up in the top 3. Like, it's hard with like Vader because like James Earl Jones' voice is amazing, but like Vader's a composite, the way Maul is in the animated series, right?
Yeah.
And so like I don't know if I'd go with James Earl Jones either, especially because like also was it David Prowse or it was Sean what's his name? It's a third person, right, who plays physical Anakin, who I think gives a great performance, but in this like he's in one scene, so I think Christopher Lee I'm going to throw up there because I think he doesn't have that much to work with. And he's in one of my least favorite Star Wars movies. But like when he's on screen, I can watch, like he has just so much presence. And maybe part of it's biased because like we just covered Dooku,
Right. But he's definitely be on my honorable mentions list. I think.
Yeah.
He's the fact that we care so much about this kind of nothing character, I think is 1,000% because of Christopher Lee.
Yeah, for sure. I think Harrison Ford does the swashbuckler. I think he brings something to Han Solo that not a lot of actors would. I think he's like a generational swashbuckling actor. Who it's not like a ton of emotional depth. There is emotional depth there, but especially like when they're stuck in the asteroid belt, that whole thing, the fact that he improv'd the line, I know,
yeah, which
like
he also improv'd he didn't improv, but he was the one who came up with one line, just shoot the guy with the sword in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Because like he was sick apparently that day, and there's like, what if we don't do the sword duel that I don't want to do and I just shoot him? They're like, oh yeah, that's good. And like if you want that to be a writing credit instead of acting credit, I don't know. I think Carrie Fisher's fantastic in the series. I'm trying to think it like in more recent things. I think Tamora Morrison is great in Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And in Mandalorian, like I think it's hard. It's like Pedro Pascal, like he doesn't get to use his face, and yet like that's like doing the James Earl Jones job of like actually having your voice communicate so much. Yeah. But then also using body language because that's like his body as well, So, I could easily put like Vader through like the composite of all of the people involved in Vader and like Mando as like two of the top ones. Like, I don't know. That's a question that I feel like I'd really need to give some more thought to really.
That's fair.
Like I think Diego Luna was fantastic in Rogue One, but like I feel like a lot of people were fantastic in Rogue One. I don't remember the actress's name who played.
Yeah,
Jan, right?
I want to say Daisy Ridley, but she's Rey, who I think is also very good. But yeah, I think one of the great things about Rogue One is it's a truly ensemble movie. So yeah, picking out any one of the individual actors is really hard.
Yeah, and I think it just has like performances across the board are one of the things that really carry that movie to like a higher level. Just all the performances. Felicity Jones.
That's it. Yeah.
She plays Jin Urso.
Yeah. So you named all three of the ones on my list.
Okay.
And I would say it's kind of funny because there are a couple of people from the animated shows who are very close. You've never heard D. Bradley Baker, who does the voices of all the clones.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just amazing what he does with his voice. But I realized, my number one though is my number one and probably number 4 are both voice actors. They're just from live action. Because I had no problem putting James Earl Jones as just just amazing. And the other honorable mention for me is Frank Oz as Yoda.
Oh I was thinking about that too. But
just the ability to convey that kind of playfulness and wisdom, and like to call out Luke while it is just so good.
Yeah.
But the other two on my list are Carrie Fisher, who I think you said pretty much everything I'd say. The only thing I'd add is I think all of the big three from the original movies, I think all of their actors do a good job of conveying who they are now in the sequels. But to me, there's something about Princess Leia becoming General Organa that Carrie Fisher does that is just so powerful. And I just love, I just think her. So she's number 2 on my list. And then my third is Pedro Pascal for all the reasons you said. Like the ability that I never had a moment where I'm like, I wish I could see his face to know what he was thinking right now. And it's his body language, his voice, even that, like he's so withdrawn. Like he doesn't show much emotion. So the ability to like have that, it's just acting gold, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on all of those. In terms of the sequel trilogy, Carrie Fisher's performance is by far my favorite out of. I mean, I like what they did with Leia,
Right. Yeah.
And I think she gives a great performance. And obviously, it's tragic that she died when she did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I think would have made, unfortunately, that last movie so much better. With her still in it.
It would have to.
Okay, so let me ask my last one. And this one might be that's less of a challenge to me and more of a challenge. I thought this would be a really hard one for you, but maybe it's only going to be hard for me. What are your 3 favorite things about Rise of Skywalker?
Oh, yeah, no. Let's see. Number 1 has to be that you hate it so much.
That's fair.
No, I'm just kidding. No,
I loved Last Jedi and you did not. And so I know you got some schadenfreude when I was like, this movie ruined Star Wars. And you're like, yeah, what's that feel like, friend?
I will say, the fact that she's Rey Palpatine, until she decides to be Rey Skywalker, felt very vindicating. When I was like, look, you don't know. That Kylo Ren was either telling the truth or even knew what he was talking about, do I like that choice for her character? Not sure. Not really so much. Let's see. 3 things that I liked the most about it. I just thought it was overall a fairly fun movie. And the end. Oh, okay. Number one is when Rey takes the one lightsaber and holds it up over her back, and then Ben reaches over his shoulder and draws that lightsaber out of thin air. That is amazing. That is an awesome moment. If I loved the sequel trilogy, that would be one of my top moments. The fact that it resides in that movie undercuts it some, right? Yeah. The fact that we have no connection to these Knights of Ren who he's now going against, who are his boys, that really makes that moment not as huge. But that one simple maneuver, that's awesome. I'm sorry, that was just awesome.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I think I was going to say earlier that the Rey and Kylo Ren fighting together after they kill Snoke in Last Jedi was another one of my favorite. Where I feel like the rest of the context of what happens afterwards ruins it. But yeah, I did love it.
Yeah.
But hey, that would be a cringeworthy moment for me about Last Jedi. But go on.
Sure. Okay, fair.
What are your other 2?
I really like that. I'm going to look up someone's name very briefly.
Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. She is who I thought she was. I really like that Finn finds another former stormtrooper. Yeah. Who's portrayed by Naomi Ackie. who is in the 3rd season of Master of None, that if you still haven't watched, you still, I think, should watch it. I mean, it's very different from like everything else that I enjoy, but I just thought it was, I thought her performance in that was exceptional. But in this, like, I think her performance is fine. It's good, but like the character sort of like that whole thing, them showing up there and like finding these other people who left the storm, I like that as a concept, that there are other people who defected, from the First Order. The fact that that's like, they're like, oh, maybe let's get, put John Boyega with like a black woman so that like the racist people aren't like, oh no, he's kissing a white woman.
You didn't like the white woman, you didn't like the Asian. Yeah, but I was gonna say that moment to me is very bittersweet because it's a brilliant plot point.
Yeah.
And I would love it if it wasn't being done to erase all the possible plot point lines. It's like, he's not going to be a Jedi. He's not going to be with Rey. But we'll give him a stormtrooper buddy. Like, it's too bad because you're right. Outside of that context, it is a great moment.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And then I was going to say my third one. This won't be my third one. But I do think that it is overtly subtextual, if you'll permit me that oxymoron, that Finn is force sensitive and that's what he wants to tell Rey. I think there is no other sensible interpretation. I think if you think anything else, you're out of your mind. And like, that's okay. I don't want to stigmatize like, mental illness but like, I need to use the phrase here. Like, I think you're out your damn mind. Because like, clearly, very, very clearly, that's what he is trying to tell her. Bittersweet. Why didn't he just tell her? Why didn't you make it textual? Why don't you just put it in the movie? But I do think that's obviously there. And I think that's better than it not being there at all.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be my number 3. My number 3 is going to be Rey healing the giant creature that they are going to kill or is going to kill them or whatever. And she's like, wait, it's injured. Let me see if I can heal it. Oh, I can. Cool. It's like, should force healing have been a thing all the time? Probably. But I guess she's like super powerful. And like at this point, I'm on board with that, Right. And I think, like I like the idea of her helping one of these creatures instead of just like killing it. I thought that was nice.
I think that was a great moment. I do also love that the Finn moment you brought up and the I was gonna say something positive about it. What was the thing you were gonna not mention?
Well, there were 2 Finn moments. There's Finn talking to
the stormtrooper. What was
Janna. Yeah, the former stormtrooper Janna. And then Finn trying to be like, oh yeah, by the way, I want to be a Jedi too, because like I can kind of feel this force thing, and like, can we do this?
Yeah, so just on the Finn thing with trying to tell her that the force, that has now been confirmed in a couple places. Like the Lego Star Wars movies, which are not canon, but like they've made it so clear, and including making some jokes where Obi-Wan's like, no, of course you're a Jedi. That's why you can talk to me as a Force ghost.
Yeah.
And I believe also the someone involved in the movie has also confirmed that. And it's bittersweet for me though, because I do think they are trying to create they're trying for a lot of the movie to make you think he wants to profess his love to her. And I think that by the end, I think you're right. It's pretty clear it's not that. But I think that they wanted to make that intentionally murky for a lot of the movie, which I really didn't like. But yeah, I would agree with all those moments. And I'll say kind of like, I've recently been able, like, for me, Revenge of Skywalker, or Rise of Skywalker and Attack of the Clones are like these polar opposites on the 2 different poles in which you can view the movies. Where I think like Attack of the Clones adds quite a lot to the overall Star Wars story.
Yeah.
But in terms of the actual movie making, it's god-awful.
Yeah.
I think if I watch either Rise of Skywalker or Solo as standalone space adventure movies, they're perfectly enjoyable. I would agree with that. I think the acting, the dialogue, there's no cringeworthy moments. To me, it just has nothing to do with Star Wars. But what I'd say about the and again, that's my opinion. I'm not for a moment saying anyone else is wrong. You get to enjoy it, and I've hearing other people talk about why they love those movies has really helped me say like, cool, it's awesome you get to see that. The 3 things I'll say though that I liked about Rise of Skywalker. Again, I love Rey as a character. I love the way she's developed. And I think the way they show her flirting with the dark side in Rise of Skywalker, and to some extent tapping into it. Like she uses lightning,
Yeah.
like, which is very considered to be dark side, and she uses it in a moment of anger, and like, yeah, she's upset because she thinks she killed Chewie, but which is kind of funny to me because like she still did probably kill some rebel prisoners, just maybe not the one she cared about. But like to me, she
definitely killed some people.
Yeah.
We know that.
I've often said on this podcast that I think the Jedi rules were pretty dumb, especially by the time of the prequels. And I really like the like good side Force users who are like, maybe pushing this AT-AT or the ATST off the cliff so we don't get shot with mind control is an okay thing to do. And so like Kanan does that, Ezra does that, and yeah, I love Rey getting to experience that, and then it makes it so much more powerful when she turns away from it. My second would be Lando showing up with a big fleet. Like, and here again, it's like,
yeah.
That's the moment where if I don't think about it, I love it. Because it is like, they're
yeah,
all
Lando's
alone,
like,
I don't know what we're going to do. We can't fight them, and Lando's saying there's more of us.
Yeah.
That came out after, I'm pretty sure
Endgame.
that came out after Endgame, right?
It did, but it was certainly shot before Endgame came out.
Okay, that because it is so similar to the On Your Left scene that it's either like they're brilliant for both doing it or it's a copy, which would be annoying. But yeah, so that's a second moment. It's again bittersweet to me because I think it completely undercuts the point of Last Jedi, and also just doesn't make any sense that all these people would come and get there so quickly. But fair enough.
And they have the Ghost in it.
Yeah,
the Ghost ship. From.
Oh, is it?
From
Rebels.
That's
cool.
Yeah, it's like in there somewhere. There's like a bunch of recognizable ships apparently.
Well, and I would say that is my third favorite moment then. Specifically because it is live action acknowledging the animated shows, is when in that moment when Rey thinks she is like done, and the voices of all these Jedi throughout time that we've met all speak to her, and it includes the animated never mind that. It includes the voice of Ahsoka, who has never appeared in live action. And to me, that was like that, and I guess the Ghost goes together as like Star Wars acknowledging the animation in live action. It's kind of like the first time we saw like the Marvel Netflix shows or like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. acknowledged on the big screen. The MCU is a big deal. To me, this felt very similar.
I don't even know that that's a thing that happened. So
okay, yeah, some of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff has crossed over. But and then last I'll say as honorable mention, Hux being the spy and being very quickly like found out and shot, because I was again, the bureaucracy stuff. Like, he's just going to protect his own skin. He doesn't care who wins. But I did have a moment of like, if you give me an a General Hux redemption story, I'm out. I'm walking. Right. And so for him to have like, you're the spy, you're helping us. Nope, you're dead. That was just like, okay, that's good writing there. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not with you so much on the like, oh, good, you're dead. But like, I liked that he was just like, he was just messing with Kylo Ren. He's like, I'm sick of this man boy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, I'm just sick of, this guy. So like, screw him. Like, I'm just gonna give this information away just to mess with him. Cause like, I just don't like him. Yeah,
exactly. So I have a couple other questions I'm going to ask. My thought is, we've been talking about wanting to have a stinger at the end of episodes. I think what I'm going to start doing, we can switch off, only do one question at a time, is at the end of our Star Wars episodes during Andor, let's ask one of these questions back and forth. Because I think it's a fun thing to do. Good. It's a fun way to kind of think about some.
It'll be a nice 20-minute stinger.
Yeah, look, we got through 6 questions in under an hour and a half, so I'm incredibly impressed by that.
Okay, 15-minute stinger. Wait, you asked 3 questions? I feel like you only asked 2.
No, I asked favorite villains, best actors, and 3 good things about Rise of Skywalker.
That's right. Okay, fair. I feel like I want to tell you what my other ones were, but should I not?
No, let's hold it. I think it'll be fun to kind of keep going as we go through
Okay. Fair.
Unless you want to unless you don't want to surprise and have us always know and so get the chance to prepare in advance.
I think if we want it to be a stinger, we should know in advance. questions?
Well, one of us should know, but should yeah. Okay, so yeah. Go ahead and tell me the questions you didn't ask, and I'll tell you the questions I didn't ask.
Okay, I was gonna ask like favorite 3 Jedi.
Okay,
favorite 3 scoundrels.
Okay.
Favorite 3 droids.
Ooh, these are good ones.
Right, and then favorite lines. Oh, that was it. Yeah.
Okay. The other ones I was going to ask is 3 favorite episodes or arcs of Star Wars TV. Like you divided it live action and animated. Yeah. I decided not to ask it tonight because it's so similar. But I was basically going to do like 3 favorite moments from the TV shows versus the movies. Okay,
sure.
So that'd be a fun one to discuss. Then my next one was going to be kind of similar to your 3 favorite like scoundrels. Your 3 favorite neutral characters.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I was gonna ask your 3 favorite movies, which I think is like okay. So if
we did that half, right?
So hold on a second. That's gonna be our stinger. Thank you so much all for listening. We're gonna answer one last question after the ads, but you're a great audience. Thank you so much for being a part of this. The Ethical Jedi is where we can find all the podcasts I do. It's where you can find all the ways.
That's not it.
Oh God. Look, I have been. With the exception of a 1-hour break for lunch, I have now been podcasting for the last 4.5 hours. So,
yeah, that's a lot. That's really a lot.
I'm in a while. So anyway, The Ethical Panda, you'll find all the podcasts I do, a lot of which Paul is on. You'll find all the ways to contact us. I want to hear your answers to these lists. I'm probably actually going to put them out on Twitter as well, on the The Ethical Panda Twitter account, so sign up for that. Mostly though, folks, start getting hyped for Andor. We definitely are. We're going to be doing episode by episode coverage. We've been live streaming some of our recordings on Paul's Twitch stream. We're going to actually, this is my wanting to officially announce it. We're going to be doing it pretty much every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Mountain. Look, I'm acknowledging you, though I still think you should kick rocks because you've got rocks, and 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time. And that'll be on Paul's Twitch stream, which is just twitch.tv/ZenMadman. And the last thing I want to mention is, because I just don't have enough ways to talk to you all, I have started a Discord channel. It's just called Discord server. It's just called The Ethical Panda. It's a great way to come, hang out with other people, have more of these discussions, get to know us, and also talk about random stuff.
And there will be a link to that, right? An invite to that in the Discord, in the show notes. Because I think you can't just find a Discord channel, right? You need an invite somewhere.
I know you actually can, and then ask for an invite, but if you make it publicly findable. But yeah, we'll definitely
cool.
With some moderation, because I do want to make sure we don't get But I think if you're here to troll, you would have lost this podcast a long time ago. So, all right, Paul. Any last words from you about what you're up to these days?
I'm Zen Madman. I spend a lot of hours doing a lot of things, and I have a headache right now. I'll talk about it some other time.
Sounds good.
But you can find me on Twitter and Twitch as Zen Madman and YouTube. And
All right. So thank you so much, folks. This is a false goodbye. There's an after coming. Thank you so much for being a great audience. And as fans, be good to each other. All right. So the original trilogy is number 1. What are number 2 and 3 of your favorite Star Wars movies?
Number 2 is definitely Rogue One. And I think number 3 is Solo.
Interesting. Okay.
I wanted to say that to troll you.
Uh-huh.
But then I realized it might be true. It's probably The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens is probably my 5th favorite Star Wars movie.
Interesting. That's what I think it often gets talked down about. I think people don't recognize just how good it is.
It's a very well-made movie that when it came out was what I think a lot of people needed to see in terms of a Star Wars movie that's well-made, doesn't have terrible dialogue. It's technically well-made. The performances are really good. I enjoy all the characters taken on their own. I don't like a few of the developments. But overall, I think it is a mostly good movie.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the complaints about it, I understand, but I don't think that nullifies, what's good about it. I think it just, you could have had a few lines that explain maybe why Rey is able to fly a Millennium Falcon type thing. you didn't. Okay. Like there's a lot of power creep, but that's just kind of what happens with these things.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I think they've got a few new characters who have very good portrayals, and they have really good chemistry with one another. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the things, that's the biggest thing to me that really makes that movie work is the chemistry between them all.
Like when we were talking about Best Actor, I was like, okay, well, maybe I should put, Oscar Isaac, or no, but maybe I should put John Boyega, like it's all of them.
Yeah.
And frankly, honestly, who I probably should have had, I don't like a lot of the things they do with his character, but Adam Driver is just phenomenal as Kylo Ren. Like, especially once you realize what they're doing with him. Like, I think he's just a very good actor.
He definitely gives a very good performance, for sure.
Yeah.
And like Solo, I'll say though, like there are parts of it that I really like, and I think as like if you're not thinking about it as a Star Wars movie, I think it's good, and I mean not like the best movie, but just like at least fine. And it's just it's got the droid's rights droid in it, right?
Yeah, that's a fun part.
Like I really like that. Although then she gets non-consensually put into the Millennium Falcon for the rest of existence. So like, I don't know. That's like sweet but questionable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
Whereas like you could have had her ask for that as like her dying moment,
Right.
Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you did that, it would have been a better movie. But no, I mean, I just definitely rank that above the prequel trilogy or the last two, I mean,
Yeah. I think that's very fair. I think like I love a heist movie, and Solo is a heist movie,
right?
And
exactly.
It just so much of it doesn't fit with my understanding of how things in the Star Wars universe work, and so I definitely I can't put that one up there. But I think I also agree. Phantom Menace to me, not Phantom Menace, The Force Awakens. I think it was exactly the movie we needed. I think I'd rank it a little lower because I feel like it doesn't really have, for me, it doesn't have very good rewatch value. It just like I feel like it was the movie I needed then. Now it's a little bit too much A New Hope all over again.
Right.
I disagree about the power stuff with Rey. I do think I think Rey knowing what she knows and Luke and Anakin knowing what they know all are a piece, but I know we disagree on that. So
I think they're like super different, and there's a big conversation there, but they are similar. I will definitely grant that.
And I will say, you are one of the only people on this planet who I'll have that conversation with. Because this is a larger topic, but I think you'd acknowledge this as well, but maybe not as much as I think it is. Like, a lot of the people who have that critique, I think it's motivated in large part because on some subconscious levels, they're a lot more willing to accept that from a male character than from a female. Or they're just much more likely, much more critical of a woman character. I know you well enough to know that I know that's not where you're going with this. And we've had that conversation. We will.
Yeah. I'm upset on her behalf that she doesn't get to have as much of an arc as I feel like she deserves as a character, honestly.
Yeah. I think it's a fair way to put it. And that part I definitely agree with. Like, I think she is a great character and I want her to get more and not kiss the genocidal man boy.
Yeah.
But that, that's fine. For me, the top three movies are, I put A New Hope specifically, which, I will say this is 100% nostalgia value. It's 100%. Sure. That's the movie that made me love all of this. It's just, it'll always be my favorite. Rogue One, I agree with you, is also just amazing. I'm so excited for Andor. And I thought about not putting this on because you might think I was trolling you, but it honestly is just one of my three favorites, The Last Jedi. It is just, it is, we disagree on it, and that's totally fine. And I'm glad that we've now, in terms of the, again, like, I think your reasons for disliking it are very valid and very different from an awful lot of the hate it gets. And, there's some discussions to be had there about why people, the way people, think of people who dislike things and stuff like that. But to me, it's just, it hits so much what I want out of Star Wars. So
yeah. And like, honestly, that makes the movie itself bother me a lot less than it would. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that I know that it's this very meaningful movie for people I care about. Like that, what better thing can a movie do than like hold meaning to people,
Right.
In important ways. And so I'm happy that it does that. I do want to actually,
can I just comment on that?
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. And I want to say I would feel the same, but I'm so glad you don't truly love and find Rise of Skywalker this deeply moving experience, because I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if I could be a bigger person as you are. Anyway, this is supposed to be a stinger, but as you said, the stinger is going to last forever, so give your last thing, and then I promise we'll let you guys go back to your next podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching a movie, and somebody I was with did say, I don't know if I can be friends with people who like this movie. Because sometimes, like, you know, if, like, somebody's like, oh, yeah, I read Mein Kampf, and I think it's pretty good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are things a person could like, and you could be like, I find that a little sus. Yep. That seems pretty sus. You know what I mean? But, yeah, I kind of want to have a long conversation at some point about...
Due to the magic of two people who just are absolutely, totally, 100% in love with the sounds of their own two voices, Paul's request to discuss that at some point became a discussion for the next 50 minutes. And we decided that instead of giving you a 50-minute stinger, we would instead just take that and turn it into the superhero ethics episode about discussing fandoms where there's toxicity and hard opinions, but legitimate opinions as well. We would just take that entire discussion and turn it into a superhero ethics episode. So, enjoy. I hope you enjoyed our stinger. Please know that the stinger went much longer, and it will be a superhero ethics episode coming out soon. Meanwhile, thank you all so much for listening to this, and as fans, be good to each other.